Welcome to Dependable Flame, where we explore vintage petrol lighters, ashtrays, tobacconiana, and other useful mechanisms. Make yourself at home. Today we are going to replace the Wick Wadding in this vintage VISCOUNT petrol lighter made in Japan. Kind of has a small fuel screw here, so we're going to be retrieving all this wadding back out through that small hole. So we will just see how this goes. Feels like it is packed in there pretty tightly. And somewhat wanting to peel apart. I get questions all the time as to why I don't use tweezers for these kind of projects. And I typically will rely a little bit more heavily on a pair of pliers. And we'll just see how this goes as the wadding begins to exit that fuel hole of the lighter, if it loosens up any. But the way we're going right now, this is going to be an all-day project. So we shall see. This wadding looks pretty clean. But it's definitely a little bit I was going to say it is a little stubborn. And you can just see how that is pulling apart as we attempt to pull it out the fuel hole here. There are other tools that may be suitable for this job. I've had people tell me to twist a toothpick up, that the toothpick will grab the wadding and pull it out. But all in all, this is just the mundane kind of project that these old lighters typically require. And generally speaking, patience is going to be a virtue. If you can be patient, then things are probably going to end up all right in the end. And that fuel hole being a little bit bigger would have definitely helped. I don't know what some of these lighter manufacturers were thinking when they created these designs. Unless maybe they wanted people to be too intimidated to just try to re-wick it themselves, and we're more interested in consumers buying a new lighter. I would doubt that they were looking out for repairmen that apparently used to be pretty common at jewelers and other kinds of shops where small items were repaired or serviced. And this is coming out a little bit easier the further we come along here, but as you can see, the wadding is still coming apart on me because of the difficulty of pulling it through the hole, and also the fact that it is packed so densely down there into the tank of the lighter. So that's our pile of wadding that we pulled out of there so far. Here's our IMCO wick that we're going to re-wick it with, along with the wadding that we have setting to the side over there that we're going to pack down in there. Once we get the new wick in it, so that's one reason why I'm not real worried about all this wadding tearing, is because I'm not going to reuse it. I'm going to go back in there with the organic cotton coil that we purchased off of Amazon. So you can see that we get a hold of it, get it pulled out the opening here, and then a lot of times once you get a hold of it with your fingers to go ahead and pull it out, that's when it starts coming apart. And it doesn't feel like when I put the tweezers off in there, they're not falling down in there very far before they come into contact with the wadding, so we'll see. I don't think we're anywhere near being finished here as far as near the end of this length of cotton or rayon wadding, whatever it happens to be. But that does not mean that we won't get a hold of a piece of it in a minute that will go ahead and pull the rest of it out in one piece. That's the hope anyway. And our job is going to become a little bit more difficult as the tweezers will no longer reach what we are trying to get to there. So we are going to have to resort to our picks here. Which, despite the fact of it making everyone nervous when they watch, thinking I'm going to screw up the threads in that fuel hole, to date that has never happened. So you can see there how I'm really just blind. I can feel the softness of the cotton as I put the pick down the hole. But I'm not having much success here bringing it all the way up and being able to see it. Finally get a hold of a small strand here. Hopefully we can get this pulled out without it all coming apart. And that's coming out at a pretty good clip there. Definitely better than it was earlier. I went to pull the wick up. It was a little bit short down in the chimney. And when I did, the whole wick kind of came apart and pulled out of there, so looks like maybe there's still a little bit of it sticking up out of there. So we should encounter a wick here at some point, exiting this fuel hole. So we shall see. Our mountain of wadding over there is growing as we pull the wadding out of the lighter. But it is not getting much easier to pull out. Still very difficult to get a hold of it. So you can see there how we'll go for a good while pulling it out, it all staying together, and then the next thing you know, every piece that you grab a hold of wants to come apart. And you can see right there how difficult that is just to try to get a hold of and pull it out, and then it's just these little wispy strands that keep coming off. It looks like a little bit bigger piece. Which, of course, ends up tearing itself. And sometimes it'll come out just right. You can feel it. Feels like very little tension against what you're trying to pull out. See that mountain of wadding over there continues to grow as we try to shake this wadding as we grasp it and pull it out. And it's looking like a pretty good pile of it there. It's hard to imagine exactly how much of it could fit into a lighter like this, just a small little lighter. Of course, the VISCOUNT is a tad bigger than most roller lighters. So if you don't have any personal experience, if you're not familiar with this exact lighter, and while it does have a smaller fuel hole than most, it's actually a little bit bigger lighter. Substantially bigger than the full-size Cygnus roller Petrol aluminum block lighters. And of course, this is a roller Petrol lighter, but not an aluminum block lighter. Appears to be chrome plated. Nice and shiny. Still has pretty good finish on it. It's amazing how much of that tears as it's coming out. That feels like all the wadding is out of there now. And you can see at some point anyway, whether it came out with the wadding or not, the rest of that wick did come out. You can see how nicely designed this lighter is. Really cool. Sparks really well. Now we've got it clean of all that absorbent wadding. Now we will get that wick fed down into it. Okay, so we've got this IMCO wire lead wick that the wire lead has been somewhat bent up on. Go ahead and straighten that out so it'll feed down in there straight enough. And you're just going to place that wire lead straight down the chimney. I keep thinking I see something right here. But there doesn't appear to be anything there, so maybe not. So we've got that wick fed down the chimney. And there's the old wick. I knew it was in there somewhere, or thought it was. Okay, so since that IMCO wick seemed a little tight, and not only did it seem a little tight, but it also, I could not reach the wire lead. So we're going to tie this wire on the end of this thinnest of the wicks that I was sent by the eBay seller David2052. And we want to get that all the way out here toward the end. And go ahead and pull that as tight as you can. Bend those straight up. And then you want to twist it. Twist that wire up tight so that there's no gaps in between it. You go to pull that wire out of the tank of the lighter. It hasn't gotten caught on either side of a piston spring seat or flint tube or whatever the case may be. So now that we got that all twisted up, we'll go ahead and tie it off here at the end. So got that tied, got our wick, twist that up a little tighter there on the end. Now we'll take our scissors and cut those two stray ends off, and that's what we're going to feed down the chimney. Try to keep our scraps separate from what we're going to need here. So now let's feed this wire down our chimney. Go down the hole. Well, you can't retrieve it much easier than that. Just came right out the fuel hole there. Get our excess fibers out of the way here. And now just pull that straight down the chimney. Just like it was made for it. Pull that back up just a little. That looks just about right to me. So, now we will get our wire pulled off of the wick here. If we can't get it pulled off, which we did, sometimes you have to cut it off. So now we can set about re-wadding this lighter. Got our wick that we're going to feed down in there with it as we go. Got this organic cotton coil that we have split a length of it into 4 different pieces. And you can see that, wow, it's feeding down in there easy enough. That 1/4 of a length is a little bit wide for this hole. So we'll just see how it goes as we get it packed further down in there, more densely. Try to get it going in both directions. Not get it all clumped up on one side. And then as we get a little bit closer to the bottom, then we'll let that wick go and go ahead and feed that in there as well. So that was a length of about 5 or 6 inches of organic cotton coil. And that fit in there pretty easily, so we will go with a little more of it. And it feels nice and densely packed in there, but you can see that we got a pretty good length there. We're still need some absorbent wadding in the tank. And so that we don't get it packed in there too densely, I'm going to call that good. So we will twirl our wick down in there. You can see the wick and the wadding right there just inside the lip of that fuel hole, and it's packed pretty densely. Get our trusty Ronsinol fuel. And that should just about do it. Don't feel anything leaking yet. Nothing running over. So we will reinstall our fuel cap. And we got a little bit of fuel here that's spilled out on my hand. I'm not sure if it came out the fuel hole or off the wick. Nice clean looking wick. Very nicely decorated lighter. VISCOUNT, made in Japan. Lights up just like you would want it to. Until next time.